I never thought my best friend of 12 years would be the one to orchestrate my public execution, but there I was, standing in the middle of my own engagement party while the man I loved stared at a leaked video that stripped away every shred of my dignity. Imagine the person you trust most in the world, the one who held your hair back when you were sick and whispered secrets with you until dawn, systematically documenting your most vulnerable moments just to use them as professional leverage. She didn't just want my job, she wanted to erase my existence from our social circle. And as I watched my fiancé drop the ring box onto the floor, I realized she had succeeded. Was I wrong for what I did next, or would you have burned every bridge in that city just to make sure she felt even a fraction of the coldness she left me with? Please tell me if I crossed the line, because after what Chloe did to me, I don't think fair was ever an option. To understand how a friendship turns into a crime scene, you have to understand Chloe and me. We were the it duo since sophomore year of college. I was the visionary, the one who could trend forecast and write copy that sold out product in minutes, and Chloe was the face, the charismatic socialite who knew exactly which hands to shake. When we landed roles at the same high-end fashion PR firm in the city, it felt like we had finally made it. We shared an apartment, a Netflix login, and what I thought was a mutual soul. For 3 years, we were inseparable, navigating the shark-infested waters of the industry together. I even helped her get promoted twice by giving her credit for my campaign ideas, because I figured her success was my success. That was my first mistake. I thought we were building a kingdom together, but Chloe was just building a pedestal for herself, using my bones as the foundation. Things started to shift when our creative director announced he was retiring. There was one senior partner opening, and based on the numbers, it was mine. I had the seniority, the successful launches, and the respect of the board. Chloe knew it, and for the first time in a decade, her smile didn't reach her eyes when we toasted to my inevitable win over wine. The tension at home became a physical weight. She started forgetting to tell me about weekend strategy meetings, claiming she thought I was busy with my fiancé, Mark. Mark was the only other anchor in my life, a kind-hearted architect who saw through the industry's vanity, but tolerated it because he saw how hard I worked. When he proposed, I felt like the luckiest woman alive. Chloe was, of course, my maid of honor. She took over the planning of our engagement party with a level of zeal that I mistook for sisterly love. She insisted on handling the venue, the guest list, and the surprise montage. Meanwhile, at the office, my files started disappearing. Drafts I had saved on the shared drive were being altered with typos right before client presentations. I was being gaslit in real time, and every time I brought it up to Chloe, she would pat my hand and tell me I was just stressed from wedding planning. She was slowly painting a picture of me to our boss as someone who was losing her edge, someone whose personal life was distracting her from her professional duties. It wasn't just about the promotion anymore. She was trying to prove I was mentally unfit for the role. Every time I cried on her shoulder about a missing file, she was probably recording the audio to use as proof of my emotional instability. I remember one specific night where I was up until 4 a.m. redoing a presentation that had mysteriously corrupted. Chloe sat there with me, feeding me coffee and comforting me, while all the while she knew she was the one who had uploaded the virus to the drive. She looked me in the eyes and told me I was her hero for working so hard, while in her mind, she was already picking out the outfit she'd wear to my replacement ceremony. The level of psychopathy required to hold a person's hand while you're sharpening the knife is something I still can't wrap my head around. We had shared everything, our first heartbreaks, our bank pins, our dreams of opening our own agency one day. Or so I thought. In reality, Chloe was a sponge, soaking up every vulnerability I possessed so she could squeeze them out when the price was right. She knew about my strained relationship with my mother, my fear of public failure, and the exact words that would make me doubt my own sanity. She used all of it. To make matters worse, she began planting seeds of doubt in Mark's head, too. She would send him concerned texts asking if I was okay because I was acting erratic at the apartment. She was building a cage of isolation around me, making sure that when she finally struck, I would have no one left to catch me. I found out later she even tried to convince my bridesmaids that I was planning to fire them from the wedding party, creating a rift that left me feeling completely alone in the middle of my own celebration. The week of the party, I found a hidden folder on her laptop while I was looking for our old vacation photos for the montage. It wasn't just photos. It was a meticulously organized dossier of every mistake I'd made in my 20s, every drunken vent I'd ever sent her in a private text, and most horrifyingly, a screen recording of a private, tearful conversation I'd had with her months ago about my insecurities regarding Mark's family. She had edited it to make it sound like I was complaining about Mark himself, calling him a stepping stone. My blood went cold. I realized then that she wasn't just planning a party, she was planning a character assassination. She intended to show that video at the party in front of Mark, his conservative parents, and our entire executive board, who were all in attendance. She wanted to disqualify me from the promotion and the marriage in one single blow. I sat on her bed for an hour, just staring at the screen, my hands shaking so hard I could barely move the cursor. The sheer volume of evidence she had collected was staggering. She had emails from 3 years ago, voice notes from last Christmas, even photos of me looking exhausted at the office to prove I was burning out. It was a masterpiece of malice. She had even reached out to an ex-boyfriend of mine, a guy who had been out of the picture for 5 years, trying to get him to say something derogatory about my character. The depth of her obsession with my downfall was more terrifying than the betrayal itself. I felt like I was living with a stranger who had been wearing my best friend's skin. I wondered how many times she had laughed at my jokes while secretly adding another entry to her burn book. Every vacation we took, every milestone we celebrated was actually just an opportunity for her to collect data. It was like living with a ghost that was slowly draining my life force. The betrayal wasn't just about the job. It was the realization that my entire adult life had been shared with someone who viewed me as an obstacle rather than a human being. I remembered how she stayed by my side when my father passed away, and now I couldn't help but wonder if she was recording my grief back then, too. Was nothing sacred? Was every tear I shed just content for her eventual takeover? The paranoia began to set in, making me question every interaction I had ever had with her. Every "I love you," every "you've got this." It all felt like poison now. So that was the cliff I was standing on. My best friend had a knife to my back and a smile on her face, waiting for the perfect moment to push. I had 48 hours to decide if I would play the victim or become the villain she clearly thought I was. Before I tell you how I turned her surprise back on her and exactly what happened when that screen flickered to life in front of 200 people, I want you to pause. Put yourself in that room. If you found out your soul sister was about to ruin your life for a job title, would you try to talk her out of it, or would you let her walk right into the trap of her own making? Comment below and let me know your move, because what I did next changed my life forever. I didn't confront her. Not yet. I knew if I showed my hand early, she'd find a way to pivot. Chloe was a PR expert after all. She could spin a hurricane into a light breeze if given enough time. Instead, I spent those 48 hours working with a private IT consultant who specialized in digital forensics. I needed more than just her dossier. I needed the why and the how. What we found was even more explosive than I imagined. Chloe hadn't just been sabotaging me, she had been embezzling small amounts from the firm's secondary accounts and pinning the digital paper trail on my login. She was planning to use the shocking video at the party to distract everyone while the board discovered my alleged financial crimes the following Monday. She was going to send me to prison, not just out of the social circle. The consultant managed to trace every single one of those transactions back to a burner account she had opened in my name, but funded with her own secondary device. We also found a series of emails between her and the creative director's married son, Julian. They weren't just having an affair, they were plotting to take over the firm together once his father retired. The level of detail in their plan was chilling. They had spreadsheets documenting which clients they would steal and which employees they would fire. My name was at the very top of the dispose list. I sat in that dark office with a consultant, watching the logs of her betrayal scroll past like a horror movie. Every time she had called me to check in, she was actually on a call with Julian discussing how to finalize the frame-up. She had even forged my signature on several internal memos that authorized the illegal transfers. I wasn't just fighting for my career, I was fighting for my freedom. The weight of it was crushing, but it also lit a fire in me that I didn't know I had. I spent the next night gathering every scrap of evidence, creating a counter-dossier that would leave no room for interpretation. I didn't just want to stop her, I wanted to dismantle her entire world piece by piece, just like she tried to do to mine. The night of the party, the atmosphere was electric. The venue was a rooftop lounge overlooking the city skyline, decorated in emerald and gold, my favorite colors, which Chloe had chosen to make me feel at home before she burnt it down. The champagne was flowing, and Chloe looked stunning in a red dress that screamed, "I've already won." She was moving through the crowd like a queen, accepting compliments on how great a friend she was for throwing this celebration of love. Every time she caught my eye, she'd blow me a kiss or give me a thumbs up. It was sickening. I wore a shimmering white gown, looking every bit the blushing bride-to-be, while internally I was a soldier preparing for the final assault. I watched her chat with Mark's parents, her laughter ringing out across the room, and I felt a surge of pure, cold adrenaline. When the lights dimmed for the tribute to the happy couple, she took the microphone with a fake tear in her eye, talking about how much I meant to her. She spoke about our 12 years of history, our shared dreams, and how Sarah sometimes struggles, but she always has me to lean on. It was the ultimate setup. She pressed play, expecting the edited video of me trashing Mark to play, but instead, the screen showed her own laptop screen, the dossier titled "How to Destroy Sarah." The room went dead silent. The screen transitioned to her private emails with Julian, where she described the board members as old fossils she was about to replace. Then came the audio, crisp, clear recordings of her and Julian laughing about how easy it was to frame me for the embezzlement. The visual of her login details appearing on her own device while she was acting as me was the final nail in the coffin. The room was so quiet you could hear the ice melting in the glasses. I watched the realization dawn on her face, the way her eyes darted around the room, looking for an exit that wasn't there. The video didn't stop. It showed the forged signatures, the burner account logs, and finally, a video of her in the office late at night, sitting at my desk, uploading the virus that had destroyed my work. The betrayal was laid bare in 4K resolution. Mark didn't drop the ring. He walked over to me and took my hand, his face a mask of cold fury directed entirely at the stage. Chloe stood frozen in the spotlight, her face turning a ghostly shade of white, looking like a deer caught in high-beam headlights. The creative director, Julian's father, stood up from the front row. His face was purple with rage, not just at the professional betrayal, but at the public exposure of his son's infidelity. He fired her right there, in front of the city's entire elite social circle. He didn't even wait for Monday. Julian's wife, who was also in the audience, walked up to the stage and threw a full glass of red wine over Chloe's dress before walking out. The humiliation was absolute. The aftermath was a whirlwind. Chloe was escorted out by security, screaming that I hacked her and that it was all a lie. But the evidence was undeniable and rolling on a 20-foot screen. She lost her job, her reputation in the city is non-existent, and she's currently facing a criminal investigation for corporate sabotage and identity theft. The fallout for Julian was just as severe. He was stripped of his inheritance and is currently going through a very public, very expensive divorce. Mark and I are stronger than ever, but the house we shared feels like a museum of lies. I've spent weeks throwing away everything she ever touched. I've learned that the closest people to you are the only ones who know exactly where to twist the knife, because they're the ones you let inside your armor. I lost a friend I thought was a sister, but I gained my freedom from a predator I had been feeding for years. The social circle she tried to kick me out of has completely rallied around me, and I was offered the senior partner position the very next morning. I even got a formal apology from the board of directors for the oversight regarding the embezzlement. But even with the win, there's a hollowness in my chest. You can't just delete 12 years of memories, even if those memories were built on a foundation of deceit. I still catch myself wanting to call her when I see something funny, before the reality of her betrayal hits me all over again. It's a haunting feeling, knowing that someone you loved so much never truly existed. I sometimes wonder if she ever actually liked me, or if I was just a long-term project for her ego. But then I realize it doesn't matter. The person I loved for 12 years didn't exist. She was a character Chloe played until she didn't need the role anymore. I've started therapy to deal with the trust issues this has left me with, and I'm slowly learning that not everyone has a hidden agenda, but the scar is there and it's deep. Every time someone is too nice or too supportive, a part of me flinches. The moral of this story is simple. Never let your shine be dimmed by someone who is only using you for your light. True friends don't see your success as their failure, and if someone is keeping a tally of your weaknesses, they're not your confidant, they're your competitor. Be careful who you share your heart with, because once they have the map, they know exactly where the most damage can be done. Pay attention to the small things, the way they react when you win, the way they talk about others when they're not around, and the mistakes that keep happening only to you. Trust your gut, even when your heart wants to believe the lie. I spent years ignoring red flags because I wanted to believe in the sisterhood we had, and it almost cost me my future. Don't make the same mistake I did. Protect your peace, protect your work, and most importantly, protect your truth. Like this video if you think Chloe got exactly what she deserved and you were on my side for the counterattack. Subscribe for more stories about betrayal, revenge, and standing your ground. And please share your final thoughts on this whole mess in the comment section. Has you ever had a best friend turn into a mean girl? I want to hear your stories of survival. How did you move on? How did you learn to trust again? Let's talk about it in the comments. I'll see you all in the next story.